Hey coders, and welcome back to our SwiftUI series. Today we're diving into layouts with stacks and grids in SwiftUI. We'll cover VStack, HStack, and ZStack, as well as build a profile card layout using images and text. This project is perfect for learning the basics of organizing views in SwiftUI. So let's go ahead and get started. Open up Xcode and you can create a new project here. We're going to select an iOS app for our template. We'll then want to add a product name, so you can go ahead and call it SwiftUI Stacks. You can call it Profile, whatever makes sense to you. Just make sure that your interface is on SwiftUI and your language has been set to Swift. You don't need any testing systems or storage. Once that's been done, you can press Next. And you can save it wherever you'd like. I have a folder on my desktop for my Swift and Xcode examples, so I'm just going to save it there. Once that's done, we'll hit create. All right, and we just have our basic template here. We'll kind of be, creating everything from scratch today, but just to go over all of what the elements kind of do is VStacks, like we have here in our example. These organize things from top to bottom. So we have our globe on top of our hello world. If we were to add another line of text, we would say hello SwiftUI, right? If we were to, add another image and things like that from our object library here, you can kind of see that it orders things all the way from the top to the very bottom. We also have HStacks. So if we were to type out HStack, add a brace and add some space, this is where we'll have things that kind of go horizontally, so from left to right. So let's go ahead and add some text, bracket, quotation marks. We'll say left. We'll do it again for right. Actually, let's do center or middle. Then right. So you can kind of see on our preview here, it goes horizontally, so left to right. We also have ZStacks, and these are kind of like layered on top of one another. So let's go ahead and create a ZStack, capital S for stack, add our braces. No matter how many times I write VStack and ZStack and all that, I would sometimes forget capital S. So let's go ahead and add our color, and we'll say maybe blue. You can do whatever color you'd like. And then we can kind of see how things layer on top of it. So we can add some text. And we'll say hello. Kind of hard to see, so I'm just going to change the foreground style really quick. So dot foreground style. Color dot light should pop up here. So we can use the VStacks for up and down, HStack for left and right, and then ZStack for kind of layering things on top of one another. So let's go ahead and get rid of our examples here. So I'm just going to get rid of our ZStack and our HStack, and I'm going to delete all of the content in our VStack, and we're actually going to build our app within our VStack here today. So within the VStack that's given us, I'm just going to add a comment card here, and I'm going to say profile card content goes in here. Cool, so anything that we're going to be adding for the next little bit, we're building in this VStack. So if you want to make some space here too, just so it's a little bit more visually clear, totally feel free to do so. This is kind of be our main container for the profile card with padding that we're going to be adding. So let's go ahead and add that now. Oh, we already have it. If you don't have the padding added at the bottom of this brace here, please feel free to do so. We can also add a background color for the entirety of this VStack. So we might as well do that now. We can always change it later. So under the padding, we'll add background. In brackets, we'll say color. I don't know what you want to do, maybe gray. See how that looks. And then maybe we can also add corner radius so it's not so blocky. Corner radius. And then we'll set it to be maybe 10. Let's see how that looks. Totally up to you. If you want to make yours look different than mine, you can. Let's also add a shadow around these profiles. So we'll type in shadow, and we actually need to define a radius here. We'll also set this to be 10. Okay, so anything we build is going to be done within this VStack. To space out our elements, we'll also add some spacing. So we'll add a bracket and we'll say spacing. That's right, lowercase s, spacing. And then a number, so colon, let's add 20. So all of the elements within this VStack are going to kind of be spread out with a value of 20. We can see how that looks. If we need more, we need less, we can always change it later. Cool, so under our comment here, so within the VStack, we're going to actually add a ZStack. So you can add stacks within one another. So I'll go ahead and add ZStack, I'll add a brace, add a little bit of space here. And then what we can do is we can add a circle. So what we're going to do is kind of create a circular image with a decorative border for our user's profile picture. So we'll say circle, we'll add some brackets here. And you can see that we did have a huge circle appear on our screen here. Let's go ahead and fill it with a different color. Let's go ahead and try blue. So we're going to do dot fill color dot blue, or whatever color you're going to pick. Always feel free to experiment and play around. Next, we're going to add a frame, which is going to kind of position the view within an invisible frame with a specified size. So let's go ahead and set the width. We're going to set that to be 120. We can also add the height to also be 120. Because it is a circle, you probably don't need both the width and the height, but we might as well make sure we're covering all the bases when we can. Next, let's layer a image on top of the circle. So we'll say image. Here we can either grab it from our object library. So I kind of want a person for my profile picture. We can do this person.fill, maybe person.circleFill. So I'm just going to actually go ahead and drag this in and get rid of this image here, just to save a bit of time. And then we can set this to be resizable, because currently it's a little bit small. It's a little bit small. So let's go ahead and make this be resizable. We're gonna add some brackets. Oh, did I spell this wrong? Resizable, there we go. Sometimes it's a good idea to use the autofill feature, just so you don't make spelling mistakes like I did there. Our aspect ratio is a little bit wonky, and again, it's even suggesting that we fix the aspect ratio. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the scaled to fit, and this is going to kind of base it based off of its parent. And then we're going to add our frame, so I'm going to say dot frame, just like we did before, and I'm going to set the width to be slightly less than our circle, so we'll try 110, and we'll also include our height, which we'll also put to 110. You'll notice if we do change the height, like if we had this to be like 75, it will shrink it quite a bit. We kind of have this like cool little profile effect going on. And let's also change the color, so we can do the foreground style. We're going to set that color, let's try white, let's see how that looks. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. It's kind of like popping off a little bit there. Again, we can also play around with this. Maybe if we wanted this to be 100, it'd be a little bit smaller. Totally up to you how you want to design this. If you didn't want to do the image system name and grab one from the object library, you can import a PNG or JPEG through new image set, or dragging and dropping from your computer into your assets here. And then in your content view, where we have our system name, you would just replace this with the actual image name, whatever it is in your assets library, and then you'll be able to see your image on the phone screen here. So this ZStack layers the background circle and a system image icon for the profile picture. Kind of gives that circle, that border effect, while the image sits center in front. Pretty cool stuff. So below the ZStack for our profile image, we're going to add another VStack for the text. So let's go ahead and underneath here, we're going to say VStack, add our brace, add a bit of space. So we have a VStack within a VStack, pretty cool stuff. And let's go ahead and add this to have some spacing. We don't want too much spacing, so maybe we'll try 10 and we'll see how that looks. We can always change it a bit later on. Let's add some text here and we'll say, you know, whatever your name might be. I'm gonna do Bob Barker because apparently I'm thinking of Bob Barker right now. Let's go ahead and change the font as well. So the next line we'll do dot font in brackets, whatever we want it to be. We can do a title. That would probably make the most sense. We can also have the font weight and make it bold. So we can do dot font weight with a capital W. And we'll say dot bold. And that's going to make that name bold. So you can see it kind of changed on the screen and made it kind of pop out a bit more. Let's also change, you know, let's add like another thing of text to kind of say, you know, maybe their title or something. So we'll say iOS developer. Did you know Bob Barker was an iOS developer? He not only did Price is Right, but he was also a SwiftUI enthusiast. Oh geez, how do you spell enthusiast? Enthusiast? That looks right. There's no spell check, so I hope that's correct. He also wanted to get your, you know, pets spayed and neutered, apparently. But let's also change the font here. So dot font, dot subheadline. I don't know why I was thinking of Bob Barker. It's weird. I haven't watched Price is Right in forever. Not important. Let's also add the foreground color. If you want to make it something different, we totally can. So dot foreground style. Oops. We want that to be color dot. Maybe orange will kind of pop off here. A little bit hard to read. How about green? That's okay to read. Always make sure your, you know, font is legible. Something you might want to do as well is if you have a lot of text here, you can actually do dot multi-line text alignment. And we can see here it sets the alignment of the text that contains multiple line of text. And we can actually use this to center. So text alignment, and then we can do dot center. So you can choose whatever adjustment you'd like. So if there's a lot of text, it'll kind of take that multi-line and it'll make it centered. So whatever justify, you know, you want to use, you can also use there. We'll use center so it kind of keeps everything aligned. I feel like the spacing is okay. You know, again, if we change this to like 15, you can kind of see that there's a bit more of a gap. So if this 10 doesn't feel like there's enough space between the elements for you, feel free to adjust it. Same with our spacing at the very top of the VStack, right? If we make this like 10, it kind of squishes down a little bit more. 20 feels like it has enough elements or space between the elements of the profile card kind of image there and our text explaining who Bob Barker is. Cool. So let's now add some contact buttons with our HStack. So outside of our VStack, we'll make a little bit more space and we'll say HStack. Amazing. If we do want to add some spacing, we totally can. We'll just set this to be 10. If you want to adjust it later, we can. You don't need to always include spacing, but if you ever feel like your UI is getting a little bit cluttered or too congested, you know, play around with that spacing. Cool, so let's go ahead and add a button here. We'll just print something in the console. We'll just, you know, make sure that, you know, we know that the button's tapped. If you want to add, you know, your actual functionality later on, you want to take this another step further, feel free to experiment with, you know, actually creating this app, but we're just going to kind of create a template today to test out the alignment. So we will say button, and then we can add our brackets, and we'll say action, add some space, also create a brace, hit return, and here we'll just simply print button pressed, so we know that's been interacted with. We're then going to add some, you know, style to our button, so I'm going to add another brace here on this line, so I'll add some space. You can kind of see that there's that, you know, closing of the bracket. We're creating another opening, and we can actually add an image here. So we'll say image, We'll say system name. I know this one, message.fill. If you want to grab a different image from the object library or reference it, you totally can. Oh, I spelled it wrong. I was like, whoops. That's the item name, system name. Okay, so that's another reason you should grab it from the object library so you don't make spelling mistakes like I do. Let's also go ahead and make it a little bit easier to see. So I'll add the font dot title, and we'll go ahead and add the foreground style. We'll set it to be blue, color dot blue. Awesome. So now we have this button that's represented kind of by this little text option that kind of looks like the iMessage button. We can go ahead and add another button for maybe calling. So we can just copy and paste our button here. It'll work smarter, not harder. And we'll just say phone pressed. I'm pretty sure the phone is just phone.fill, but let's go to our object library, just check. Phone, megaphones. I want something, yeah, like this. This makes more sense to me. So yeah, phone.fill will work perfectly fine here. So phone.fill. Cool, and we can even, kind of press these buttons. You want to open up your console on the bottom right. Phone pressed, right. In your actual app, you've of course put your logic for when that button is pressed, right? Maybe you would open up iMessage with this user, or call this user, things like that. But we can use our HStack in order to kind of arrange these elements horizontally. If we want to add a little bit more space between them, we can. We can see they kind of shift apart a little bit more. So that is our profile card. Pretty cool. I'm going to change this to also be green. Why not? Just add some separation between the two. Anywho, we have the HStack. It arranges those buttons horizontally. Each button uses an icon from the kind of built-in system symbols, giving it a consistent look, and the action closures kind of provide that placeholder functionality. If you want to explore, how those would actually function, feel free to do so. It's totally up to you. We're kind of just experimenting with the stacks today. But yeah, there you have it. A clean and functional profile card using SwiftUI stacks. We can even hop it open in the simulator. We can see how it looks on the bigger phone screen. But this is how the VStack, HStack, and ZStack work together in order to kind of create that very visualized, organized layout with minimal code. We can even see here, I'm just going to move it over so we can see the console. But if we press on it, we get the button press and things like that. And the nice thing about working in SwiftUI, right, it'll scale if we're using an iPad, whatever phone or device we're using, it kind of scales. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just include a example at the very end here by adding a PNG into the Xcode project, but otherwise that's pretty much it. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more SwiftUI and Swift tutorials. Until next time, dream big and code bigger. Okay, cool. If you are one of those people who are interested in adding something to the assets catalog here, I've just downloaded a PNG off of the internet of Bob Barker here. I just added it to my desktop on the right side here. So you can either drag and drop kind of on this list on the left side here in order to add an image. You'll see it's added as Bob-Barker. You can also press this button down here and import, totally up to you. But now that this has been added to our assets catalog, we can use it within our project. So let's go back to our content view. And let's go to our ZStack here. And in the image, instead of system name, we're just going to go ahead and reference it exactly how it's spelled. So it's Bob-Barker. and you'll see that he appears. Because this isn't a circle, you know, we might have to, you know, kind of fix it with some clipping and things like that, or we can add a corner radius to it. So let's go ahead and under here, under our image, let's add dot corner radius. And let's try 25. Let's see how that looks. You can kind of see that's starting to shrink the corners. Let's try 30. It looks a little bit better. I don't know, 50. Yeah, I think 50 looks best. So if you do have kind of square PNG or JPEG, you can use the corner radius to turn it to be a little bit more circular. That looks pretty good. We'll pop it open on the simulator just so we can see it a little bit easier. And there we go. So play around with the corner radius. 50 seemed to do the trick for me, but that's how you can add an image to your kind of contact card there, which is pretty cool.